So, Megan 2.0 bombed at the box office this weekend, making just a third of what the original movie made a year and a half ago during its opening weekend. Now, I had a bunch of thoughts on why that happened, and I talked about them on a live stream on Patreon yesterday. And then after I did that recording, Jason Blum, the producer of the movie, he did a podcast and interview where he was surprisingly candid discussing why he thinks that happened. So the first section of this will be the stuff that I recorded before I heard that interview, and then the back half of this will be me talking about what he had to say about it. There's a lot of overlap there, but that's what you're about to watch. Here's some thoughts on why Megan 2.0 bombed. Let me know your thoughts on what happened down below in the comments. Megan 2.0 opened with only $10 million. Point of reference, the first Megan opened in January and made $30 million. It cost like $10 million and it tripled its budget domestically in 3 days. That's why they're like, let's strike while the iron is hot. Let's do a sequel. They do Megan 2.0. They give it a bigger budget, they give it a summer release date, and it makes a third of what the original movie made on its opening weekend, just kind of dead on arrival. Any plans for this expanded, extended Megan universe pretty well died with Megan 2.0's opening weekend. The audience has spoken that nope. The first one gave us something we wanted. We don't want all of this. So what on earth happened here? I think there's two things really, and they a little bit go together, but it's kind of separate in another sense. But first one, I think they completely misread the room. That the first movie kind of like dipped its toes in entry-level horror, dipped-toed its toes in like, you know, kind of quirky TikTok stuff. And so the movie had the TikTok dance stuff that helped it go viral, got a whole bunch of people to show up to it. There was the memes, there was the quotes, and they saw that and they didn't hear the criticisms of the first movie. The big criticism of the first movie was that, it's just too soft on horror. But the praise was, the TikTok dances. So they took one of those and they ran with it. We'll double down on TikTok dances. But they didn't hear people want the movie to be more horror, not less horror. And so for the sequel, they abandoned the horror almost completely. Like, there's little moments of horror-ish stuff in it. But it abandons horror to be like a spy espionage, campy action comedy. So I think right there, when they said, we're not going to do horror, we're going to do spy stuff, they abandoned the audience, the actual committed audience, because the TikTok dance crowd, the viral crowd, that's a finicky bunch. That is not long-term, but horror fans, those are a committed group of people, and they abandoned the more committed audience. And I think people just went like, if it's not more horror, like whatever this is, like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. So it just didn't show up. And somewhat on that same level, the first one of the reasons it could cut through and be really successful is they dropped it in January, where there's just not a lot of competition. So you put out a movie that's kind of got personality and you have the videos going viral, and it cuts through. It's the big story of the month of January. And it was. What is that? A year and a half ago when it came out. That was the big story. Like, Megan, wow, it's surprisingly good. Have you seen the dance? This is kind of fun. Oh, can you do the dance? But you take this small budget kind of viral success and you put it up against a new franchise every week. 28 years, How to Train Your Dragon, Pixar. You've got coming out this weekend. You've got Jurassic World. Like, it's competing against all of this gigantic marketing budget. Movies that cost 5 times as much as it cost, more than that. and it just gets lost in the crowd. The viral TikTok stuff works in a market where there's a space, a gap for it to cut through. It doesn't work when it's an oversaturated market with weekly blockbusters coming out. So those two things, trying to turn it into this campy, fun summer blockbuster, killed the movie. As a January entry-level horror movie with some viral TikTok moments, it killed it. But then they killed their franchise by trying to make it something else. Summer fun movie. So that's my take on what happened with Megan. So everything you just watched was recorded on a Patreon live stream. I have a box office show over there where I talk about box office, unpack it, give my reasons for why I think things have happened, give some perspective on what the numbers mean. So if you like that sort of thing, consider joining over on Patreon for more box office shows. But about an hour after that, Jason Blum of Blumhouse Productions that produced Megan 2.0 appeared on the Town podcast, where basically less than a week after this movie bombed, he appeared to give his insights. And I'm not going to unpack everything that's in there. I highly recommend you check it out. The whole podcast is under 30 minutes long. The part with him is 15, 20 minutes long. And he talks about where the tracking was at 8 weeks ago. And the tracking 8 weeks ago is that this thing might open to $45 million. It might open bigger than F1. And then with each passing week, the tracking dropped. And so the tracking a week before the movie came out was at $20 million, which would be significantly less than the first film. And so he was starting to get knots in his stomach, a little bit worried. And so it's just kind of a producer's perspective on watching the tracking for their movie, how nobody really has a good read on tracking anymore, and just him breaking down what happened. That, why does he think that this movie underperformed so much? And he gave 3 reasons. 2 of his 3 reasons were my 2 reasons. And then he had a third one with a little bit of insight to it. So the first reason he gave as to why this movie just kind of collapsed, same thing that I said, it was a genre swap. That they misread the room a little bit. And he talks about how the trick, the balance with every sequel is that you can't just do the exact same thing as the first movie. You have to do something fresh, new, and original. Otherwise, people complain that, why did we do this? We already made this movie. But if you change it too much, they go, hey, why did you change this? This isn't the same thing anymore. It's something completely different. So you're trying to find that balance. And he didn't overtly dive into it the way that I did about, hey, you made a movie for the TikTok crowd. But he said right from the get-go, we did a genre swap and we lost the audience. That almost immediately, that's where we lost them. That the further out we were in the trailers were just, we're doing another Megan movie, the numbers looked really good. And the more trailers we put out that made it clear that we're doing a genre swap, all of a sudden, people were like, we're not interested in this. If this is not a horror movie, then who cares? Second thing he talked about is that they moved to summer.
He said, we thought Megan was like Superman. We could do anything to her. We could change genres. We could put her in the summer. We could make her look different. We could turn her from a bad guy into a good guy. We kind of classically overthought how powerful people's engagement really was with her.
They were kind of high on their own supply of Megan, that they thought that she was the hook in and of itself, that they loved her doing horror. They loved her doing dances. So whatever we do with Megan, they will follow us over there. And so they took it into another genre and they went, oh crap, we were wrong. No, people actually don't just care about Megan, they care about what Megan is doing too. So the second one to that is they thought we could do anything with Megan. So we had this thing that was a hit in January when there was a little competition, and then we moved it to the heart of the summer. We thought we could do anything with Megan. We were just so confident in Megan that we can put her wherever we want and we will stand up and do well. And so they put her in the middle of summer, and that didn't work. The third one and so those 2 are what I said. Third one was, he was trying to tiptoe around what he was trying to say. At the core of it, I think his perspective was, we didn't make as good of a movie. But the way he phrased it was, we rushed the movie, and it didn't work as well because of it. So talking about the director of the film, he basically said the director is awesome. but it's a director that needs time. And if you give this director time, this director will be successful. And what he said was, when we made the first movie, we didn't have a release date until the movie was done. We finished the film, we allowed him to make his movie, and then all right, it's good, it's finished, here's our release date. With part 2, they went, man, this was a big hit, let's strike while the iron is hot, here's your release date. And so they had a person that works well with time, and they gave them a time constraint. So there's the underlying he doesn't want to throw his director under the bus, so he's trying to phrase it in a way that points the finger at him. I rushed the director, but what he's saying is we didn't make as good of a movie as we could have. That had we had more time, had I allowed the director to cook, you have all the time you need to cook up something great, we would have gotten something better. Was the underlying concept of it. So some version of rushed, some version of unnecessary deadline, and because of that, it wasn't as good. That was Jason's kind of take on it. It's just an interesting listen, because he's talking about his perspective and how he kind of reads the room and how you can see the trajectory. Like, is the buzz getting bigger? Is it getting lesser? Where do you feel the momentum? In the case of this one, it felt great 2 months out, and then you just felt all the momentum was always in the wrong direction until you get this disastrous opening weekend. And what happened was, well, we moved away from the audience. We moved away from where we were a hit, and I didn't give my director enough time to deliver a movie we'd all be happy with, including and especially the audience. So that's my take on it, and that's my overview of what Jason had to say about why the movie didn't work. Let me know your thoughts down below on why you think Megan 2.0 bombed at the box office. And keep talking movies and TV.